We're starting chapter 2, The Bricker's Other Pet. When we last left off, Marilyn and Bill Bricker bought socks from George and Debbie at the grocery store. The Brickers drove Socks to a shabby house with a weedy lawn, a fragrant lemon bush, and geraniums growing in earth comfortable for a kitten to dig in. They made a bed for Socks from a carton and an old sweatshirt and placed it in the laundry beside his dish. They did not object when he chose instead to sleep on the couch in the living room, which, except for a chair with loopy upholstery, was furnished in what the Brickers described to their college student friends as contemporary cast-off. They fed him canned and dried cat foods and brought raw meat for him. They wiped his paws on a good bath towel whenever he came in with wet feet because they had not been married long enough to have an old bath towel. And when the winter rains came, they supplied him with a pan of kitty litter. The Brickers talked to their cat. "Socks, you're getting a lot of service around here," said Mr. Bricker, as he left his studies to get down on his hands and knees to retrieve the ping-pong ball Socks had batted under the chest of drawers out of reach of his paw. "Such silky fur," Mrs. Bricker spoke in her just-for-Socks voice, as she left off typing to press her cheek against his coat and let her long hair fall over him like a curtain. Socks' throat throbbed with purrs. He was especially happy when he could interrupt her work on the papers that she typed for her students. Her typewriter was his rival for her attention, and Socks did not like rivals. And rival is like an enemy. And here we can see the Brickers getting Socks out of the car. The only unpleasantness in Socks' new life was an unhappy day spent in a veterinary hospital, which was soon forgotten. Socks thrived. His eyes changed from blue to the color of new leaves. And what color is new leaves? In the springtime, when all the leaves come out, they are green. He grew into a sleek cat, affectionate, which means loving, towards his loving owners, but firm about getting his own way. He was the center of the Bricker household, and he was content, which means happy. Then a strange thing happened. Mrs. Bricker's lap began to shrink. One day, Socks was perfectly comfortable resting on her knees, and the next day, he did not have quite enough room. Each time he napped on her lap, he had to curl himself into a tighter ball with his tail wrapped more closely around his body. Finally, one evening, when trying to find room to rest his chin, he lost his balance and fell to the floor with a thump. Both Brickers burst out laughing. Socks was insulted. He turned his back and twitched his tail back and forth across the carpet to show his displeasure. "Poor Socks," said Mrs. Bricker between giggles. "You lost your dignity, didn't you?" "Come on, old boy," coaxed Mr. Bricker. "Try my lap for size." He moved his chair away from his desk to make room. The tail twitched. The Brickers would have to work harder before Socks would forgive them. Owners must be disciplined. If they really wanted to be forgiven, they would have to tempt him with a snack from the refrigerator. Instead of going to the kitchen, Mrs. Bricker suddenly said in an urgent voice, "Bill, it's time to go." "Are you sure?" Mr. Bricker's voice registered excitement, worry, and joy all at once. Socks waited. These people had to learn.